Welcome to my walk. I wanted to talk about music. And I think the great thing I've always labeled music as the greatest art there is. And I think it's the immediacy of music is something to be said about. And it kind of can really slow things down when you're out doing whatever you're doing. Suddenly you can hear like a song that really strikes you, and you can, for maybe some seconds, just maybe slip into a whole other world for some seconds, and you can be transported into another world. And if it's really striking you, it's maybe you can get another flavor in the experience that maybe can remind you of something that you're not in usually. And I think it's the immediacy of like tapping into the flow, whatever you're listening to. And I'm thinking now, like what came up for me now, it was something like, what if we in a larger degree could talk and listen to each other like we were listening to music. And that who's ever talking, we could not kind of tune into the music in them, and just lean back and really try to capture the experience of this other being. What are they? It's, and we can really start to get curious about what are they actually saying. And what kind of tune are they playing today? And also on a deeper level, like, why are they playing that song today or right now? What's going on? What's going on for them when they're playing this tune? And so we can start to be curious about like what, and maybe also say that I'm curious about what's going on for you. Why are you playing this hardcore music today? Maybe not a question like that, but maybe more inviting, like, yeah, you seem kind of anxious or sad or angry or whatever you're playing. So maybe something can start moving, and the tune can be something we sing or we play together. Reminds me of my appreciation for jazz music. Always been fascinated by, especially classical, like Chet Baker and old guys and the old stylists. Can be nice, I think, but something to be said about more freestyle, kind of experimental. We're not playing from a place of we're kind of just not playing. We don't want to play by note by note. Not that kind of linearly structured. We can just play. I'm reminded of John Vervaeke's and the notion of serious play. And I can see the value of serious play in jazz music, somebody just starts to maybe a little beat, and just allowing for somebody else to step in. And imagine we all go around with our little beats in the background, and we can start to get curious about like we can start to get curious about what kind of beat am I going around with? What's beating in my being? And what do the drum in me need to be with in order to experience more of that juicy flow? And also what arises in me now is the what was it? Yeah. Talking about sounds and music, and this huge bus is driving comes up from behind me, and there's another loud noise, and I lost my jam, so to speak. I was distracted by a sound. It's amusing. Talking about sound and flow, and suddenly I was distracted. And this distracting is always going on. And how can we be with the distracting? Remember yesterday also I was kind of on this exploration I felt like it was deeply personal and full of love and light, and it was a fond memory, and I got this old feeling of adventure. And I was going on and like really going back to the experience when I was about I think I was around 12 years. And I got this quality, this sense of adventure, and the playfulness and the adventure every time. Me and my friends was like, yeah, it's a new game, the sequel or whatever, the sequel to the game, and we were playing I remember some of the names, I think. Oh my god, my hand is cold. Ooh. I think I have to put on some gloves. The sequel of like King's Quest and all these And it was the kind of the dawn of the computer. With these big machines, you know, before long. We're talking about early 90s here. So it's way before internet, and at least here in Norway. But the excitement and the anticipation of what this game could unfold for us, and how we really just dived into this other world together, and it was hours and hours, like playing and figuring out what to do in the next step, and we had to type in commands in order to get the character to do stuff. And the graphics was so big. So sometimes it was impossible to see what it was, so we have to try to guess sometimes. But all this guessing and like questioning, what can that be? And we had to, like, because this, of course, it wasn't Norwegian design, so our language skills had to become better, because we didn't know how. We had to guess what the object was, and we had to figure out how to spell it. So it's essential language. And you notice I want to return to this exploration, and but this it's kind of what we're always doing. We're trying to figure things out as we're living our lives, and this sense of togetherness, that we can look at things like me and my friend were doing for so many hours at a time. We were looking at this thing, and if this thing is our experience, our experience of what we're experiencing, together, and so we can explore that in kind of the same way. And that brings me back to the notion of serious play. Serious play, and all the richness that can happen between and in ourselves if we pay attention to what's actually being said between all the lines, between all and underneath what we're actually saying. It's not the words by itself. Can sound like, okay, so this is what you're saying, it makes sense to me, like it's a concept. Yeah, of course we're like saying a whole other stuff, and like if something came up for me now, like I could get this Of course, I can agree to what you're saying. That makes sense, and leave it. I've understood something with my mind, and my mind says this is right. This makes sense, and and but that's not what I'm aiming to say. It's not what I'm aiming to say. I'm saying like the experience of this that makes sense. If we can just stop, like this music I was mentioning in the beginning, like this point where you go, like, yeah, this experience is we're coming and we're being with a whole other, we're being in it with a whole experience, with a whole emotional, this stop point when you go like, when everything like space and time just vanishes and you get this totally different quality of being. And for every time that happens, this for me, and more, it's also an interesting the more and moreness. How can we? What happens in that moment when you're just being, and you're being with whatever you're being with, when you're pausing and like something other than me is invoked, is some deeper parts in us can kind of realize that this moment is just this is just what it's all about. This moment right now, and I'm looking around and I noticed this sun on this cold winter day is just shining. And I notice I just want to pause there and just stand in the light and allow myself to just slow down and just really receiving and appreciating this richness. I mean, outer and inner richness, and just being thankful. It's like a reminder to not take this moment for granted. Yeah, I don't want to take things for granted. I really don't. I think we fall into to taking things for granted so often in life, and suddenly it's gone. Suddenly things that we love are gone, and that's how it is to fully, and the only like realizing that things can suddenly disappear. The remembrance of these moments that we suddenly find ourselves in, whether it's a beautiful piece of music or beautiful being, or wherever we find ourselves. Something in that moment thank you for listening, and thank you for being on this little journey with me. I'm gonna turn this off, and I'm just gonna stand there in the sun and just take it in. Feel this is a good start of my birthday. Have a good day.